have a major projection right now. And CNN projects Doug Jones, the Democrat. He will be the next United States Senator from Alabama. He beats Roy Moore in this really, really exciting contest.
I used to dream about love.
You know, I really want to thank you for coming tonight and realize when the vote is this close that it's not over.
Of the tall, dark, mysterious kind.
Actually, what Roy Moore was dreaming about was love with a 14-year-old girl, something which in no small way contributed to his downfall. The fact that people are jubilant about a Democrat managing to beat a child molester should tell you how difficult it is for a Democrat to win in Alabama. The last time a Democrat won a Senate race in Alabama was in 1992. Richard Shelby won and then switched to the Republican Party 2 years later and has managed to cling on to his seat as a Republican to this day. 4 days before the election, the president made his way down to Pensacola, Florida to campaign for a child molester without really campaigning for a child molester. Or at least, that was the plan. You see, Pensacola, Florida just happens to share a media market with Mobile, Alabama, so what appeared on local TV in Pensacola would also appear in large parts of southern Alabama. After the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell begged the president not to campaign for Moore, the president
get out and vote for Roy Moore.
Campaigned for Moore. The former Democrat and now senior senator from Alabama, Richard Shelby, encouraged fellow Republicans to get out and vote, but not for Roy Moore.
When it comes down to it on Tuesday, who would you rather see win?
Well, I'd rather see the Republican win, but I hope that Republican would be a write-in. I couldn't vote for Roy Moore. I didn't vote for Roy Moore, but I wrote in a distinguished Republican name, and I think a lot of people could do that. Will they do it? I'm not sure.
Almost 23,000 voters followed suit and wrote in another Republican name, which in the end was more than the margin of victory for Doug Jones. There was an obvious split between those who voted for Doug Jones rather than for Roy Moore. Those who believed the allegations against Roy Moore saying that he preyed on young girls, they voted for Doug Jones, and those who didn't believe those allegations, they voted for Roy Moore. It was the Washington Post who first published the allegations of sexual harassment against Roy Moore. Some Moore supporters thought it would be a good idea to pose as Post reporters to make people think that the Post paid the women to say these things about Roy Moore.
Hi, this is Lenny Bernstein. I'm a reporter for the Washington Post. Calling to find out if anyone at this address is a female between the ages of 54 to 57 years old willing to make damaging remarks about candidate Roy Moore for a reward of between $5,000 to $7,000. We will not be fully investigating these claims. However, we will need a written report.
This is
Come
incredible.
on, Sam. Come
That's
on,
cute.
man. That is hold on. This is insulting.
It is. It's the most anti-Semitic.
Hi, I'm Bernie Bernstein. I just left shul. I'm calling about a store. I mean, come on.
Excuse me.
Was Julie Juicer
on my dog?
Yeah. I got a little stain from my matzo ball soup.
I mean, Julie McJuister was not available for phone calls. It's ridiculous. It's so anti-Semitic. It is so
Only
anti-Semitic.
Sam can kind of do that.
So obvious.
What?
Yes, it's
All
really
right.
gross.
It's
really well.
Good,
Try
right?
to be more
It's very
discreet.
good.
Can't tell
to
that's
laugh.
not at all.
So the Washington Post.
Clamped over here.
And it's absurd.
Oh my God.
So if you didn't,
Can you do that again? How are you
No.
feeling?
No, I'm not going to do
the
that.
Washington Post says the robocall is not real.
And incredibly enough, people fell for it.
How many are actually not being paid or being coerced to do this?
How many of them do you think are being paid?
All of them.
All of them?
All of them.
By show of hands, how many of you think all the women are being paid? Seriously.
Yep. So, when you ask yourself, how could people possibly vote for a child molester, here's the thing. They didn't. They believed they voted for a man who was the victim of a lying smear campaign by the Democrats and the evil liberal mainstream media.
This is a smear campaign. That's all this is.
What is?
Doug Jones is a lawyer. This is the only thing he understands. Lawyers are like this, okay? Washington Post, Gloria Allred. This is simply a smear campaign of accusations. That's all it is.
Well,
Roy Moore's going to win this election tonight.
Then of course you might ask yourself, well, how could they possibly vote for a man who openly said that homosexual conduct should be illegal?
Do you think that homosexuality or homosexual conduct should be illegal today? That's a yes or no question.
Homosexual conduct should be illegal. Yes.
Should be illegal.
Yes.
Probably because a lot of people still agree with him. In the bubble I grew up in, this kind of thinking is so foreign that it makes about as much sense as to say that if you burn gay people at the stake, I bet they'll make a nice firework display because, you know, gay people are mostly made of sulfur. And that's why they sparkle so nicely when you set them on fire. What Doug Jones's victory reminds us is that facts matter, reality matters, and decency matters. In the end, it didn't matter that huge amounts of Republicans didn't come out and voted for Doug Jones. It didn't matter that they didn't cross the aisle. What mattered is that Republicans stayed home because the Republican candidate wasn't up to scratch. For a long time, Republicans could run a cantaloupe in a state like Alabama, and it would win by double digits.
That's what I love about America. You know, it's the only place where a Secretary of State, senator, and lifelong public servant can be put on equal footing with a screaming cantaloupe.
But when that cantaloupe starts feeling up little girls, voters will see that the cantaloupe is rotten and throw it out with the trash. Sure, over 650,000 voters still ate the rotten cantaloupe, but coming into this election there was no way the candidate was going to lose at all, so this should still be counted as a win.
The African American community, thank you!
He really should thank them. African American voters were a huge part of Doug Jones's path to victory. But before the election, there were worries that the Jones campaign wasn't doing enough to turn out African American voters.
Are you going to vote for Doug Jones or Roy Moore?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Man, listen, I love to vote and I would vote anybody. I ain't going to vote for neither one. I don't know no Doug Jones. That man ain't came right here and spoke to us, to the people. We the people. Well, see, we on that old 1960 where you got to get out and vote. We have done that, man. Ain't no changes.
In the end, black men made up 11% of the electorate, and 93% of them voted for Doug Jones. Black women made up 17% of the electorate, and 98% of them voted for Doug Jones. Without the black vote, Doug Jones would not have won. Turnout was only about 40%, but it was African Americans who came to the polls while a lot of traditional Republican white voters stayed home, too disgusted to vote for Roy Moore, but still too partisan to vote for a Democrat. DNC Chair Tom Perez tweeted, "Black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party," and that was certainly true in this race. But it's also worth to mention that 30% of white people voted for Jones, which doesn't sound like a lot, but Obama only got 15% of the white vote in Alabama in 2008. Doug Jones also won independents by 8 points, which again, also doesn't sound like a lot, but there's been a huge shift. In 2012, for example, Mitt Romney won independents by 52 points in Alabama. Meanwhile, Roy Moore spent some time this summer talking about how good things were during slavery. Because of course he did.
At a campaign event in September, one of the only African Americans in the audience asked Roy Moore for his opinion on when the last time America was great. Here's the quote. I think it was reportedly the quote, "I think it was great at the time when families were united even though we had slavery. They cared for one another. Our families were strong. Our country had a direction."
That's the single worst piece of black voter outreach I have ever seen. I mean, good God, it's even worse than when Trump tried to attract African Americans by saying that, "What do you have to lose? You're living in hell anyway." Moore also said that America is the source of all evil in the world because of gay marriage.
He said that Russia was the focus of evil in the modern world.
You could say that very well about America, couldn't you?
Do you think?
Well, we promote a lot of bad things. You know,
like
same-sex marriage.
And he spoke Russian.
Здравствуйте, как вы поживаете сегодня?
Which doesn't look great now that it's becoming more and more clear just how involved the Russians were in electing Donald Trump in 2016. Because of all of this, Moore really should have lost by more than 1.5%. He should have lost by a lot. But this is at least some reassurance that facts and decency matters at least a little bit, and that it actually can break through partisan lines, if only ever so slightly. I'm just gonna leave you with the most passive-aggressive Merry Christmas you've probably ever witnessed from a Roy Moore spokesman.
You don't actually have to swear on a Christian Bible. You can swear on anything, really. I don't know if you knew that. You can swear on a Jewish Bible.
Oh, no,
you can swear
I swore on the Bible. I've done it 3 times.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've picked a Bible, but the law is not that you have to swear on a Christian Bible. That is not the law. You don't know that? All right, Ted Crockett with
I
the
don't
more.
know. I know that Donald Trump did it when we made him president.
Because he's Christian and he picked it. That's what he wanted to. That's what he wanted to swear in on. Ted Crockett with the More campaign. Good luck tonight. Thank you so much for being here. My panel will react when we
Merry
get back.
Christmas, Jay.
Thank you, sir.
Also, you know, Jake Tapper's Jewish, so happy Hanukkah. P.S. Roy Moore rode a horse to the polls on election day, and on his way back he almost fell off. So, you know, that's nice. Okay, that's it. I'm out.
If you will tell me I'm the only one that you love, life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again.